Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. When my wife and I bought our first home together 5 years ago, we were thrilled. It was a cute little two-story house with a big backyard, plenty of space to start a family. The neighborhood seemed nice too, with kids riding bikes and people walking dogs. We moved in eager to become part of the community. Only a few weeks later, we got a notice in the mail about joining the homeowners association. I'd heard bad things about homeowners associations before, but my wife said it would be fine. They just take care of the common areas and make sure people don't let their homes look shabby, she said. Hesitantly, I agreed to sign up. At first, the homeowners association seemed all right. They organized a few neighborhood cookouts and set up some flower beds in the little playground area. But then the crazy rules started. We'd get fines for the smallest things, leaving our trash cans out too long, not trimming our bushes just right. It was ridiculous. After a particularly annoying incident involving our mailbox being the wrong shade of black, I'd had enough. I told my wife I was done with this homeowners association nonsense, but she convinced me to stick it out. It's not worth the hassle of moving, she argued. So, again, I reluctantly agreed. Big mistake. A few months later, I arrived home from work to find a crew of workmen at our house. Without any warning, they were halfway through tearing off our gray vinyl siding and replacing it with beige panels. I jumped out of my car demanding an explanation. A smug foreman sauntered over. New homeowners association guidelines say all homes must have beige siding. Makes the neighborhood look more uniform, he said matter-of-factly. I was fuming. You can't just change our siding color without permission, I shouted. The foreman shrugged. Orders from the homeowners association board. Take it up with them. He went back to work, ignoring my protests. I rushed inside to tell my wife what was happening. She was just as upset as me. We looked up the Homeowners Association president's number and called to complain, but he gave us the same line. The Homeowners Association was allowed to make these kinds of changes to improve property values and aesthetics. It was unbelievable. These people thought they could waltz in and alter our home however they pleased, but we felt powerless to stop them at this point. The workmen had already torn off half the siding, so the damage was done. We'd have to get a lawyer to fight this, which sounded like a massive headache. Over the next few days, we watched bitterly as our home's new beige siding went up. It completely ruined the character of our house, making it look dull and generic. All the homes on our street were slowly getting uniform beige siding, too. It was like living in a weird dystopian subdivision now. My wife and I hoped the Homeowners Association would leave us alone after that. But a month later, we got a letter saying we were being fined $200 for non-compliance with neighborhood aesthetics guidelines. Apparently, even though they forced us to get beige siding, we now had to pay a fine for not doing it soon enough. That was the last straw. I immediately called a lawyer and explained what the Homeowners Association had done. He was shocked and said we had an excellent case to sue them. The Homeowners Association had no right to alter our home's exterior without permission, let alone charge us for not complying fast enough. Over the next few months, we built an ironclad legal case against the Homeowners Association president and board members. When we finally had our day in court, the judge was appalled by their actions. We provided photos showing how they damaged our property and testimony from neighbors who'd endured similar abuse. In the end, the judge ordered the Homeowners Association to pay for replacing our siding to its original gray color, as well as our legal fees. Furthermore, the Homeowners Association president and board members were all removed from their positions and barred from serving again. As we watched the original gray siding go back up on our home, it felt like sweet justice. The judge's ruling sent a clear message. Homeowners associations can't just bully homeowners and make arbitrary changes to people's property. In the following months, many of our neighbors also sued the Homeowners Association for their actions and had their homes restored. The neighborhood is looking like its old self again, with a mix of colors and styles instead of just rows of beige boxes. My wife and I learned our lesson, though. As soon as our siding was fixed, we immediately terminated our Homeowners Association membership. From now on, our home's exterior will match our style, not what some obsessive Homeowners Association board members think it should be. If we ever move again, checking for a reasonable homeowners association will be our top priority. I never want to deal with tyrannical busybodies like that again. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I wanted to share a story with you. I'm a 23-year-old university student in Slovakia. The story revolves around our prom night and our funds, 2014 to 2015. In my secondary school of business, Commercial Academy, we used to pay €50 into the fund each year to save up for the prom. We had 29 students and accumulated €5,800 over the period of 4 years. The last year, we had to appoint a parent who would take care of the finances, managing the account, paying for the things we need, handling the alcohol, etc. Unfortunately, EM nominated herself. Other parents were just like, "Meh, I don't want to do that." This is where the story begins. EM, mother, was also the mayor in the small village I live in. My school was only about a 5-minute drive from my house to my school in a town nearby. I had also been a really good friend with her son, John, when we were younger. John changed and became unbelievably spoiled over the years. When we entered our new school, he started rubbing his high life and how rich he is in everybody's face. Standard rich spoiled a-hole. He was the first to get his new car, always the new iPhone, going on expensive vacations, etc. Simply nobody could be better or richer than him. As we came close to the prom night, we quickly found that our funds were almost drained out. The girls in our class were really shocked. They had planned the prom to the smallest detail with every cent put to use. We even had to end with €600 at the end of the prom. Suddenly, we had only €50 left in the bank account. Back then, we didn't really care. EM just took more money than she should, and she would return it later. We asked EM where she spent the money. She just replied, "I had spent it where you told me to. The rest I will put back." I didn't believe a single word, but since it was the night before the prom, we didn't care. The prom was nice. We had lots of fun, inviting parents and teachers alike, with the best possible food and alcohol for the evening. The next day, we went over our account and found out we were actually €600 in debt. WTF just happened? We first checked with EM. She gave €200 to the photographer, paid him even €200 for the job well done, really stupid, and even another €200 to get Blu-ray discs instead of regular DVDs or CDs. We bought her BS for a time. We called the photographer. Lo and behold, he only received €200. The question was, where did the rest of the money end up? You guessed it right, in EM's pocket. It was not only that, a couple of €100 here and €100 there, and you get the picture. We estimated that out of the €5,800 we originally had, she borrowed €1,200. We told our class teacher and our parents about that. They were all furious at her. She was asked to present cash register receipts to see where the money went. She was red the whole day, as she was trying to falsify the receipts. Eventually, nobody bought into her lies anymore. She was asked multiple times to cover the losses, but she had always found an excuse. Couldn't press charges as the fund was rather voluntary, and we had no official documents. Plus, we gave her all the info on how to withdraw the money in the credit card. Eventually, our graduation came along. Maturita in Slovakia. We had no more money to make a small feast for the teachers before the graduation, as we would never see each other again. Some of the parents volunteered to bake or cook something for the teachers. EM came as well, and she even had the courage to eat from the tables our parents voluntarily made, free of cost. She was even asked to stay outside and was not allowed to enter until she paid her debt. A few days after, I got a FB notification from John, and boy, the audacity. If everyone in the class would give €20 more, we would cover the expenses. Suddenly, a rich brat turns into a choosy beggar. I told him no. He had a party in the evening since it was his B-day, so I went there. I handed him a bottle of Jack Daniels, because he gave it to me on my B-day saying I could never afford it myself, and told him, "We're done. I'm not your friend." I couldn't let it slide. Her husband had covered the expenses eventually, but it wasn't good enough. She stole from her son and from his classmates. From what I know, she is a fraud. Tax evasion, accountancy fraud, falsifying documents, and even extortion. What we did is, we rounded up what evidence we had on her for stealing from our fund, and we handed it all to the prosecutor who was investigating her case, working on her corruption charges at that time. It would give a great profile of the person who steals from her son. The trial was delayed several times, due to her knowing some people, but eventually we put her under so much stress, she couldn't even think straight. We sometimes wrote messages on her FB page asking for her confession to the police and even sent emails to her detailing her scam. After a while, she was making even bigger mistakes. She was trying to avoid this trial as much as possible. She wouldn't want to be confronted by stealing from a prom fund from her son. Her actions got to her fast. There are still ongoing corruption investigations, 3 I know of, as well as abuse of powers as a public official. There's also a warrant to arrest her. Don't know if they really did. Since the last trial of another scam, she even had to pawn her house, sell her car, even her son's motorcycle. She's now in hiding. John didn't make it far either. As a spoiled brat, he was unable to find a steady job, had like 8 jobs in 2 years, and dropped out of college after only 1 winter semester. Rumors have it he deals in pot nowadays. The only person I pity is EM's husband, John's father. He was the only actual nice guy in their family, even stood up for me once in primary school. EM didn't want to pay money she borrowed from a bunch of other people on his name, so she made him announce bankruptcy and possible insanity. To this day, he is still married to her, as far as I know. As I remember him, he once told me, "Family is the most important thing a man can look up to make him feel proud, to feel like you are a part of something." Now, I feel like he has nowhere else to go but to stay with her. The next one is a petty revenge story. Not my story, but my cousin's. Let's call him Dave. So Dave, 34M, was dating Karen for a really long time, like 4 years. And earlier this year, he finally proposed. Now, Karen was a bit of a gold digger and a very entitled person. She was a bit of white trailer trash, but fancied herself a rich lady. She was very vocal to all the other women in the family about how she wanted a traditional diamond ring and how she'd like Dave to follow the tradition of getting her an engagement ring worth 3 months' salary. Now, Dave isn't super rich, but he does have a stable factory job, and around here, that's basically upper class, and his 3 months' salary would be between $3,000 and $6,000, depending on overtime. Needless to say, Dave did not want to spend that on a ring given the global situation and the fact that he could be laid off at any time. He'd been doing the ring shopping at the beginning of the year and thankfully wasn't laid off. So Dave decided to look into alternatives and found white sapphires. For those of you who don't know, white sapphires are a fantastic alternative to diamonds. They can be grown, so they're not obtained with slave labor, aren't artificially inflated in price, and to someone who isn't a jeweler, they look exactly like any diamond. So Dave was able to buy the size stone that Karen wanted with a fancy setting, gold band, the works for a fraction of the cost if it had been a diamond. He proposed and told her it was a diamond and that he'd saved for a year. A bit of a dick move, but it was probably him being petty. He, jokingly, told me it was probably his way of getting revenge for her being such a Karen. However, it doesn't end there. As you can imagine, once the wedding planning started, it didn't go well. Karen was an entitled witch and didn't understand why a global pandemic was a cause enough to hinder her from having her perfect day. It all came to a head one day when she and Dave had a fight over the guest list. The dream venue she chose didn't allow for as many people as they needed, like 300. They both have big families. And Karen sent out invitations and saved the dates without Dave's knowledge. Except she only invited her side of the family. No one on Dave's side got an invite, not even the in-laws. Dave called off the wedding and kicked her out of his apartment, in his name. Karen kept the ring out of spite, something Dave didn't really care about. It didn't hold any value to him, and he was more worried about the wedding he was now having to cancel and the texts he was getting from Karen's side. It took a few months, but they all calmed down, and he didn't hear from her until last month. Turns out she tried to pawn the ring to a pawn shop in town known for its jewelry because the owners were in the jewelry business before they switched to pawning. She was convinced that she'd get a few thousand for it since she still believed it was a diamond. The pawn shop offered her a couple of hundred because it was a sapphire, and the owner actually liked it. She called Dave several times and sent a billion texts, he never answered or picked up, demanding that he pay her in cash what the ring was worth, threatening to sue for the lie he told her, etc. He and I had a good laugh listening to her tantrum. I guess diamonds might be a girl's best friend, but sapphires are definitely not for Karens. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I work at an amusement park and we have this ride called Moby Dick. This ride is 100% controlled by the operator. A couple of weeks ago, a woman and her friend came up to my ride, making fun of one of the kids who was on the ride. She was saying so many hateful things about how they look. Without even looking at her, I told her to stop, and this is how it went. Me. You're literally talking about a 7-year-old like that. You need to stop or you will not be allowed on the rides. Karen. But it's true, look at them. Me. Don't disrespect other guests, please, it's not okay. Karen's friend. Stop, Karen, before you get us in trouble again. Karen. Whatever. When the ride was finished, I started letting the next group of people in. I said, do not pull down on the bars, pick any seat you'd like. To everyone as they walked in, since pulling on the bars can damage the seats over time. I let a group of young boys in before Karen's group, and they sat at the end seats. Karen marched over to the kids, yelling at them to get out of her seat, and that she had paid to sit at the end. Me. Miss, please stop yelling at the kids, or you will be removed from the ride with no refund in tickets. Karen. Don't tell me. Karen's friend. Stop it, Karen, just sit in the middle. She complained the whole time walking to the middle seats, and then pulled down the bar. I was thinking it was time to get a manager over, but I didn't want to bother them with her. Once I got everyone seated, I closed all the seat bars. When I was checking the seats, Karen's one was on the loose side, so I pushed it in a little to make it tighter. Karen. You're trying to kill me. First you left my seat open, now you're making it so I can't breathe. I ignored her and kept checking seats. When I finally started the ride, I slowly rocked it and Karen was screaming to take her off, so I made the ride go faster, doing full circles now. Halfway during the ride, Karen screamed, Karen, stop the ride, you! She wanted me to stop it? Fine with me. I parked the ride at the top of the ride like I do when closing, but keeping the ride on. The 6 others on the ride weren't scared the ride stopped. Karen started screaming bloody murder, crying and begging to be let down. The parents watching knew what she had said before their kids, and knew what was going on and started laughing. After around 30 seconds, she was still screaming, let me down! So I did, on the fastest setting. I started the ride spinning at full speed. I made the ride a little longer since all the kids were having fun. Before I opened the seats, I screamed a warning. Me, wait for the bars to be fully open and stay above your head before getting up. Stay seated. Karen pushed it up and got up, having the bar fall back down and hit her in the head. Her friend laughed at her and got up, walking her off the ride. The next one is an entitled people story, so I'm financially okay. One of my closest friends is backyard to 13 KSQ Fane House has a tennis court rich. We went to college together and have been incredibly close friends for 20 years. His kids call me their uncle, I was in his wedding party, I spoke at their wedding, I can go on. It's important to note we were also broke together. As broke as 2 kids at a private university not taking out loans could be. Mom and Dad paid the tuition, beer money was on us. Here is the issue. He took up golf. I've played for years and will play at the local courses and spend on bucket list trips, Pebble Beach, Streamsong, Ireland. He joined a nice country club. Whenever I text him to play golf, he always says, meet at my club. After 5 or 6 times, I told him that between guest fees, $200, and caddies, $120, it's a little pricey, and to let me find a nice course to play that doesn't hit me so hard. We try to play 2x a week, so you can see how that adds up. For reference, I would end up at a course that's about $70. His issue is he can't always make a tee time. His club is first come, first serve, which works given his profession. He just can't always make it to tee times. So it's basically his club or bust. He also laughed at me and said, don't be weird. I always offered. He just picks up the tab. Every time. Never complains. I gave up offering to pay because it felt like Groundhog Day. He asks me for little favors, I think to make me feel good. Like, hey, on your way to the house, can you pick up takeout? Or grab the kids from practice, etc. Now though, whenever I text him to play golf, it's become a given. His club, his treat. I found out from his wife he was going club shopping, so I got him a gift card for a putter. A Scotty Cameron is $500, so it did cost me a real number by my standards. The math isn't even close to fair. I feel like I am inviting myself to his club, his treat, when all I want is to kick it with my buddy. I would play the $12 Mooney with him. Is this sense of entitlement in my head? How do I make sure he never ever gets that impression? If y'all were him, would you wonder why I stopped offering to pay? It's literally because this has gotten us nowhere, and having the same convo over and over is annoying. I am a neurotic mess in general. Is this something to add to it? The next one is an entitled parent's story. To preface this story, I'm a huge fan of a band called Ninja Sex Party. They make comedy songs, but they're wildly inappropriate. Also, this happened when I was 14. My mom and I were waiting in a dentist's office. I was listening to some NSP, specifically their album Attitude City. My mom didn't think they were funny, but she's cool with me listening to them because it's not like I'm going to become some crazy whack job from listening to Dragon Slayer and Symphony in P minor. She's not stupid. Anyway, in walks this EM with her kid. She doesn't have an entitled look about her. No Karen characteristics, and the kid is well behaved. I didn't think anything of it. Since my mom and I were the first ones sitting, she took social cues and niceness and just decided to stand next to us. Now there's a song on Attitude City called Butt Sex Goldilocks. Go give it a listen, it's genuinely funny. However, it's not really a song. I was in a music mood, so I decided to open up my phone and change it. This EM looks down and sees the song name and hisses at me. EM. Excuse me, young man, what on earth is that? Now I read this subreddit quite a bit, so I already know an EM when I see one, so I handle it calmly. Me. It's a song, ma'am, I was just changing it to something else. That song is vulgar and rude. It could corrupt my kid like it's corrupting you. Your mother must be ashamed of you. Now my mom couldn't hear her because she's getting older, and her hearing isn't as good as it used to be. So trying to suppress my anger, I say the most badass thing I could. Me. Okay, ask her. As I point to my mom. This EM quickly runs around me to my mom, gets in her face and says, EM, your son is listening to some very inappropriate music. My mom. Sighs, what's the band's name? EM. Ninja Sex Party, a song called Butt Sex Goldilocks. Mom. So it's his music, it doesn't affect you, so please leave him alone. EM. But it's vulgar and rude. Man, she's really good at countering her point with the same two arguments over and over. So my mom says, look, he could be listening to death metal right now. For all I care, he isn't bothering other people. Unlike you, my son cares for others around him. Plus, I can't hear it. How could you hear it? I couldn't, but... Mom, then don't let it bother you. Please leave us alone. She left us alone, and after I came out of the dentist's, she made some comment about corrupted youth or something. I wasn't paying attention, I just wanted my music back. That was about a year back, and my mom and I still joke about it. She's even started listening to them a bit, so how about that for a happy ending? Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.